Right. So, here is something nobody says out loud. Most men think that letting themselves go looks obvious. They picture a specific thing, don't they? A bloke who can't button his trousers, someone breathing heavily after a flight of stairs, the kind of man who has stopped entirely and is now, more or less, a human-shaped sofa. And they think, right, well, that's not me, so I'm fine. But the first sign is never that, not even close. The first sign is much quieter than that, and most men walk straight past it without noticing because it does not look like a problem yet. It just looks like a Tuesday. The first sign is when you stop caring as much as you used to. Not dramatically, not overnight, just slightly less than before. You used to have a standard, even if you never called it that, a thing you did or didn't do, a line you held. And then one day, quietly, without making a decision about it, you let it slip. And you told yourself it was temporary. I know this because I did it. For a while, I did it quite thoroughly. There was a version of me in my late 30s who had convinced himself that being exhausted all the time was just what life was now. Work was busy, the kids were young, everyone was tired. I was just being realistic. That is what I told myself, while eating crisps at 10:30, watching something on my phone I wasn't even enjoying. Very realistic behaviour. The honest thing is, I hadn't made one big decision to stop looking after myself. I have made about 400 tiny ones. Each one looked completely reasonable at the time. I'll skip the walk today. It's raining. I'll eat properly at the weekend. I'll get an earlier night on Friday. I'll sort it out after Christmas, after the project, after things calm down. And things did not calm down, because things do not calm down. That is not how things work. And I kept waiting for a version of my life that was not coming, while quietly lowering the bar on a different version that very much was. The exceptions slowly became the routine. That is the actual first sign, if I'm honest. Not the weight, not the fitness, not anything visible yet. It's when the exception becomes the rule and you stop noticing the difference. When skipping it is now just what you do. When tired is now just who you are. When the promise you made to yourself on a Sunday night has a shelf life of about 48 hours, and you have stopped being surprised by that. And the reason most men miss this is because it happens in such a reasonable, understandable, utterly human way. You are not lazy. You are genuinely busy. You have a job, possibly a family, a mortgage that thinks about itself every morning before you do, and about 67 things that all feel more urgent than going for a walk or going to bed at a sensible time. Of course the small things slide. Of course they do. Life applies pressure, and the first thing most men sacrifice is themselves, because they are the only thing in the household that doesn't immediately complain when they do. But here is the bit I want to come back to, because this is where it quietly changes. When you stop moving, stop sleeping, stop eating anything that hasn't come through a car window or out of a packet, and tell yourself it's just this week, the body adapts. Not by getting stronger, it adapts to the new normal. It starts treating the reduced version of you as the baseline. And that is a very slow problem, because the reduced version of you feels completely normal. You stop noticing because there is nothing dramatic to notice. You just feel a bit flat, a bit heavy, a bit less sharp than you probably should be, a bit like someone running on a battery that never quite charges fully anymore. And you laugh it off as getting older. And some of it is genuinely getting older, but not all of it, not even most of it. A lot of it is decisions. A lot of it is decisions. There is a lad I know, decent bloke, similar age to me, used to play five-a-side every week, ate fairly well, not obsessively, just normally. Then work got harder, the kids came, the five-a-side stopped. He said he'd pick it back up. That was 6 years ago. He didn't fall apart, he's fine. He just got gradually smaller in a way that has nothing to do with size. Less energy after work, less patience, less interest in the things he used to do on weekends. And he says every time, I just need to get through this bit and then I'll sort it. He is always getting through a bit. And I'm not laughing at him. I was him. I recognise every sentence. The tragedy, if that isn't too strong a word for what is really just a very human thing, the tragedy is that he doesn't feel far gone. He just feels busy. That is what makes the early signs so easy to miss. You do not feel like a man who has let himself go. You feel like a man who is coping. which, when you think about it, is a different kind of problem. So what is the way back? Because I want to be clear, this is not the part of the video where I suggest you overhaul your entire life before the month is out. I know how that ends. I have got the gym membership cancellations to prove it. The way back is not dramatic. It is almost insultingly small. Pick one standard you have been quietly abandoning and stop abandoning it. 1 walk a day. It doesn't have to be long. 20 minutes. You've got 20 minutes. You're not that busy. Neither was I. I was just very comfortable on the sofa. 1 earlier night a week. Not every night. 1. 1 meal a day that isn't you just eating whatever survived the school run. 1 glass of water before you reach for the coffee, the biscuits, or whatever you use to get through the afternoon. Pick 1. Not all of them. 1. And keep it. Not perfectly, just mostly. Because the point is not the walk. Not really. The point is that you are becoming a man who does not abandon every standard the moment life applies a bit of pressure. That is the identity you are quietly voting for every time you go, even when you don't particularly feel like it. And to my boys, because this whole channel exists because I want them to understand something before life teaches them the expensive version. The first sign of letting yourself go is not what you see in the mirror. You might feel absolutely fine. You probably will. The mirror might tell you nothing for years. The first sign is the moment you stop noticing the small promises you keep breaking to yourself. The moment the exception stops feeling like an exception. The moment your standard for yourself quietly becomes something you used to have. Pay attention to that moment. Not with panic, just with honesty. The standard you hold for yourself, even quietly, even imperfectly, becomes the man you are over time. And you are still early enough for that to matter.